You are listening to the Enormocast.
Hi, this is Dr. Alan Honlove with the Honlove Good Catch Institute. And in 2026, we're partnering with La Sportiva to send a message of love and empowerment for the new year. It is not uncommon after the holidays to be feeling worn down, out of step, and misunderstood. Frankly, it's enough to make you want to go free solo a skyscraper. But don't be silly. Why in the world would you do that? But we here at HGCI want you to climb out of the doldrums by returning to that childlike state when a new pair of shoes would legit make you run faster, jump higher, and dream bigger on the playground and beyond. And what are rocks but just a playground? And what are you but just an overgrown child? So we've partnered with Sportiva to bring salvation in the form of the best climbing shoes that not only slap and slay, but are legit fire. With help from Sportiva, your inner middle schooler will leave no crumbs in a pair of mandalas, absorb the aura of the special edition Squama, low-key vibe on Tommy Caldwell's Riz in a pair of TC Pros. And let's face it, the venerable Miras, well, still may be the GOAT, no cap. So here's to new shoes and a less Coogee you in 2026. Go to LaSportivaUSA.com or your favorite local shop to level up and unlock infinite drip.
Listen, where are you playing in town? Are you playing here?
We're doing the Enormo Dome, whatever it is. It's terrific.
Oh,
it's
yeah,
big
big
house.
place, that side of town. That's a big
nice
place. You sold
What's
it
that,
out.
20,000 seats? We really should.
Look, you better get up there before you panic. Those pens are loose. You're very good. I have really enjoyed climbing with you. We'll make it. I don't think so. But we shall continue with style. Bad weather. Now or later, anytime for climbing.
Today's show is brought to you by La Sportiva and with support from Maxim Ropes. Maxim has been keeping the Enormocast off the deck since 2012.
And don't forget our charter sponsor, Bonfire Coffee. Go to bonfirecoffee.com and enter Enormo at checkout for a discount on great coffee and to support the Enormocast.
And now back to the show.
Hello and welcome to the Enormocast. This is your host, Chris Kalous. It is February 22nd, 2026, about 12 noon here in Colorado, and this is episode 319 of the Enormocast, a conversation with Freja Shannon. Who's Freja Shannon? Well, she's a dynamic, young-ish climber. Not that young. Everyone feels young to me. She's half Irish, half Swedish, although I think the Irish runs a little bit deeper. She's based in Chamonix, and we have her here on the show. As maybe you can hear, I am recovering from a sinus infection. I limped my way to the finish of my Ice Fest season there in Michigan. Though I tried to keep up, I did my best. I was nursing this infection the whole time, and then I got home and it hit me like a ton of bricks. But you know what? If you're sick and you still go out and party really hard and you go out into the cold and go ice climbing, yeah, you just get sicker. That's how it works. Anyhow, I managed to pull off what I needed to pull off there in Michigan. Had a great time. Once again, thanks to Bill Thompson and the organizers up there for having me. I got to sit in with the band at the Chris Kalous dance party, my eponymous dance party, and I think we pulled it off. I think it sounded cool, had a great time, the crowd responded. You can see that stuff on my Instagram. But thanks again, although I'm glad to put a period on my ice climbing season for the year. I'd have to think about it, but I was in the mid-teens on my ice pitches this year. All of them on top rope, all of them during an ice fest. That's right, I'm an ice fest dandy. Nothing real public going on for a while, so I'm just going to hunker down and start pumping out episodes. I've been dripping them out a little bit this year. I did that last year as well. Kind of just took a break to do one a month for a little while. I'll start cranking the spigot again here in a little bit. And those of you waiting on the last rites, formerly known as TAPS, well, it's been a little hard to organize this year. I had it booked, then I was too sick to do it. Coughing and hacking my way through a TAPS episode is not something I want to do or you guys want to listen to. I've got a ton of calls. I am organizing it. It should be out very, very soon. Sorry. I know everyone anticipates it. At least you deep fans do. So it'll be here. It's on the menu. We'll be recording it this week. Inshallah. All right, let's get to Freja Shannon. Freja Shannon is a youngest climber, European based there in Chamonix. She grew up in Ireland and Sweden, was a snowboarder, kind of a wild child, moved to Chamonix to snowboard, and then found climbing. And climbing seems like it might have replaced that penchant for partying a little bit, putting those energies somewhere else. And since then, she's become an accomplished big route climber, rock climber, alpine climber, although she's taking a little break from some of those disciplines right now. We'll get into that in the interview. And the reason I noticed Freja is because she turned up in the Black Canyon this year. And I saw some posts about it and communicated with her a little bit about her time down there. And it's interesting because I think a lot of European climbers don't know about the Black Canyon or have only heard whispers of it, and they certainly don't end up there very often. Although notably, Hans-Georg Auer, the Austrian climber, not only frequented the Black, but did the first free ascent of the Lucigen and put up some other routes. So it does happen, but it's a little bit rare. So I was kind of interested in her experience down there. So we chatted a bit about it. She got her butt kind of kicked, which, I consoled her. That happens. It's an interesting place to climb, but she loved the atmosphere and the adventure and is ready to go back. And in those conversations, I ended up inviting her on the show. And it was a pleasure to talk to her. So I hope you guys enjoy it too. This conversation with adventure climber Freja Shannon. I got excited looking at your Instagram because you got down to the Black Canyon. And not only is that quote unquote a local area for me, although we just talked about how it's 2 hours away, which in your scene doesn't feel local, but in the West it feels local. But also it's like been a big joke on the show that I try to get the Black Canyon into as many interviews as I can.
Yeah.
Sometimes illegitimately, but in this case you were down there.
So this is legit.
It was like it seemed like the start of your most recent U.S. trip, or near the start. How did you end up in the Black Canyon? Because I think it's it's famous, but it's definitely not on the map for sort of people visiting the country as climbers.
Well, I actually wish I had this exciting story of how I just came across it and just decided that I had to climb there. But actually, my boyfriend was there the year before.
Okay, cool.
With his friend. So I saw the photos that he showed me and I was like, wow, I have to go there. So I didn't actually find it myself. It was showed to me, but then my heart was like, I have to go there. It was just, wow, it's so wild. And I think it's like an alpine climber, or like a lot of the climbing in Europe, or having gone on expeditions and stuff, like, I don't know, there's just something that is so fascinating about these entirely untouched areas. And like reading the guidebook where everything seems kind of bold and run out and a bit spooky, it's like, wow, you can go on expedition in America, you don't have to go to like, I don't know, Kyrgyzstan or any of these crazy places, so I was like, wow, you get like quite an easy hit of a lot of adventure without too much effort,
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good description of that place, because it does, like, it automatically feels like that when you drop in, whether you do what you guys did, at least on that on this last climb where you wrap down the south face, which is very committing, or it's actually north facing, but the south rim, is very committing. The other side has its own level of commitment as well, depending on where you go. But it always feels, I mean, as someone who's a veteran climber there by any account, I was just there for the first time in a while this fall myself, and the butterflies fluttered as you sort of drop off the rim and start going down no matter what. It's pretty wild.
It's I mean, I was blown away. And then the climbing itself, there's no chalk, there's no, you'd be happy if you see a bolt, you're happy if you see the odd piece of like tat or an old stuck nut or something. And it's just, I don't know, it's so humbling because, like, in contrast to then having gone to Yosemite or something, you know, people are pushing every single limit possible. It feels like in the Black Canyon, you know, you really reel it in because it's actually kind of out there and dangerous. Like, it's a humbling place to be. You know, I was terrified, like, climbing 5'11". Or 5'10", because I was like, oh my god, no one's gonna know that I'm here. I'm just gonna be lost in the Black Canyon forever. I think it's really cool, humbling feeling. Like, I think it's good for the body and mind to kind of
there's like this. I have never had to do it, but there's this mythical thing that happens. Not mythical. I know people it's happened to, where you do get shut down on that side and you can't get out. Due to thunderstorms or whatever happens, then you end up down at the bottom. Then you cross a Tyrolean that's there because the Park Service keeps it there for just such situations. And then you go up the other side, climb up 2 more fixed ropes to the north rim, and now you can see your car and your stuff on the other side, but you're 3.5 hours by vehicle away from it. And you're in your climbing shoes, presumably, because most people just leave their trainers or their approach shoes on the rim. Yeah. So it's like the ultimate walk of shame, and then calling a friend or trying to hitchhike, or if you're lucky, a ranger's going back over to the other side and will bring you back to your stuff. But, fingers crossed it's never happened to me, but yeah, it's definitely happened to some people. So
for sure.
Interesting. Yeah.
I mean, it was so funny. One day we were on Take Your Time, one of the classic 512s. I mean, you know it, and it was so hot, and it just felt so hard. We were jet lagged. It was hot. It was wild. And I just remember belaying my boyfriend Tom, and just like every now and then when it seemed like this pitch is taking a little bit too long, I wonder what's going on up there. And I was just looking around. Okay, I just need to know where the Tyrolean is. I need to know that we're gonna survive.
Yeah. Yeah, it's down there.
No, it's a pretty cool place for sure.
Yeah, and you guys chose. I mean, that's I think the best route in the canyon. So
it's incredible.
It was a good choice, but you ended up having to do half of Astrodog, which that exact thing has happened to me. So and you mentioned like, oh yeah, now we got to climb this thing that we have no gear for. It absolutely has literally the exact thing has happened to me where we're like too hot and too slow, and this one's supposedly easier. And,
oh my god, it was not. It was not. Like 5'11" in the black, up this black sea of rock. Oh my god, it was not easy.
Yeah, and I know of at least 2 broken limbs on that little crux thing off the ledge.
Oh no
too,
way!
So, yeah, broken ankles hitting the little ledge. You got to do that move on. Yeah, so. Anyhow,
wait,
there
this
you go.
Makes me feel validated because my boyfriend was like, why are you so afraid of this? And I was like, feeling so tense. Like, okay, thank you for validating me. Thank you.
Yeah, totally. No, I mean, yeah, you know what I'm talking about. You get off the ledge and you have to do like those, like 10 feet of stemming where you're going to smoke that ledge for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for sure. Like you're not going to jump past it. So,
No.
I know two people have smoked the ledge.
Gosh.
You were totally valid in your like concentration of not falling right there. So
okay, thank you. Thanks.
Well, that preview is a subject of to talk about a little bit later too. But let's go back to you. We just did. We got the Black Canyon thing out of the way. I've been looking forward to it all morning. I appreciate it. And, but yeah, let's talk about you. So Freja Shannon is like this cool place to start your name. Actually, is really I think. This really interesting thing, you've got this very Scandinavian first name, this very Irish last name. You're named after a goddess, who I looked up is a major goddess in Norse mythology, captivating figure associated with love, beauty, fertility, war, gold, and magic. Like that's a lot to carry.
That is, I had big boots to fill. So I have performance anxiety in climbing and in just my place in the world.
Right. I mean, it's like, I was like, really, you guys, you put all that on the one goddess? Like, it's,
I know I should talk to my parents like, guys, this isn't good.
But anyway, talk about that. Yeah, your sort of cultural background here.
Yeah, so I'm Freya. I'm half Swedish, half Irish. And like literally as half Swedish and half Irish I could be, because I grew up like 2 years in Ireland and then 2 years in Sweden and then back and forth like a yo-yo. And yeah, so I think I just, little bits of me are very Swedish and then little bits of me are very Irish. Bit of a hybrid. But then I've been living in France, in Chamonix, in a mountain town, for the past 10 years on and off. So this has always been my base, and then obviously traveling a lot with climbing and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I read that the climbing came a little bit later. So you probably, like, do you have any sort of Irish climbing roots? Like, that's like this total mystery to me. What if that even exists? I mean, I know it exists because I've talked to Irish climbers. I guess I've had only one on the show, Niall Grimes.
Oh yeah,
yeah. So he's from Northern Ireland, and so yeah. But nobody ever like goes on and on about Irish climbing. What's going on over there?
So I've climbed in a lot of places in the world, Yosemite, France, like all these meccas. And I think, honest to God, one of the best climbing places in the world is on the west coast of Ireland. It's this limestone crag, trad climbing right above the sea. And it's like the heart of Irish climbing. And I think it's one of the best places to climb in the whole world. And it's got a really strong climbing scene. Kind of like the British, but the Irish climbing scene is so small. You know, there's like 10 climbers, 3 of them are girls, the rest of them are guys, and everyone kind of know each other. And I don't think it leaves Ireland really. You know, it's like our little Irish secret, this really strong climbing scene. And then occasionally people will come from abroad, but it's kind of sacred for the really strong climbing scene.
Yeah, I've often remarked about how sort of out of the way climbing scenes are often like they have the most mythology and the most ritual and kind of like the most close-knit scenes of all, because they, you know, they're just like so proud of what they have, and they're almost proud of the fact that no one gives a shit about it, you know, or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, it's pretty cool. Yeah.
So most of my climbing, so I started climbing in France, and then I kind of took it back to Ireland. And I was like, whoa, and I actually grew up 5 minutes from this crag. It's called Aladee, or Mirror Wall. And I grew up 5 minutes from there. And that's obviously, like I mentioned, a very close-knit community. Then I spent 4 years on Sweden's west coast, where it's the exact same thing. In Bohuslän, this tiny little trad climbing community. And yeah, so most of my climbing has come from these like tiny little places. And then I've like been out in the world in Yosemite or America and France, where it's so much bigger. But the start of all my climbing has been these like small little bubbles, I guess.
Yeah. So what do you think that's done for you? I mean, as far as influencing who you are as a climber, what do you think you've taken from being in those kind of places?
It's made me quite humble and downplay everything in a way, and just, I guess, like, to some extent, it gives you quite strong ethics, because these places often have really strong ethics. But in terms of my own climbing, you know, especially in Sweden, you know, the person you're sitting beside in the pub has just climbed like an 8B on trad or something, and they don't have any Instagram. There's no big deal made out of it. Or in Ireland, the same thing, you know, people are just out there and crushing, but it doesn't really matter. It's just, you know, it's not on show for the world. It's more just for the people who are, like, that are there and stuff. And I think that made me feel quite grounded and like humble about my climbing, for better or for worse, because sometimes sometimes it's good to feel a bit more confident about things. But I like that it started there, and then it's grown into like seeing what other people are up to in the world. But like starting off with such a humble, no big deal view of climbing made me think that, oh, okay, it's not actually that big deal to climb really hard. You know, it kind of demystified it a little bit. And I was like, oh, okay, well, it's so normal to climb a 7B or a 7C, 513A trad route, you know? So it kind of, it helped me feel like anything is possible, because there was nothing was a big deal.
Yeah, no, it's still not normal.
Sense.
Actually.
Yeah.
You know, you mentioned kind of the Chamonix thing. And it was sort of a little bit later in life that you ended up there learning climbing. But I want to go back to one other thing that you mentioned is, before we get to that, is that, you know, this, you mentioned, just said yo-yo between Ireland and Sweden. You know, what was growing up like that like? I mean, it, you know, especially when you get to sort of middle school ages and things like that, that can be a little disoriented for kids. Did it make you more independent? Like, what were you like as like this little girl that would eventually find climbing?
Bouncing around that much as a kid, and this is a question I actually get quite a lot, so I have thought about it, and I just know no different.
Right.
So it's made me probably quite comfortable with just abbing into the black, because I'm like, oh, I'll figure it out. I figured it out when I went to new school when I was 11, or I figured it out when I had to be the random Irish girl in a school full of Swedes, you know? So I think it has made me quite adaptable, and just like, I'm quite happy just to bounce into a situation and figure it all out. And then when I found climbing, you end up traveling and meeting lots of new people and going new places all the time. So I guess that's why I found climbing and felt like I felt at home there, because I was like, oh, there's loads of other people that have also bounced around a lot, or they're continuing to do so as adults and stuff like that. You know, the thought of having lived in one place for more than a year is just like baffling to me. And now I've lived in the same house in France for a year, and I'm like, wow. You know, and then I get some of these bursts where I'm like, okay, it's time to move now, time to go.
Right.
So I have to like retrain myself. Like, it's okay to have like a home address, you know, it's okay to have the same number for a while. But I think it's a positive, and it depends how, like, my brothers might be different. They probably want to like settle a little bit more than I do. But I think, yeah, it just works for me. This, like, yeah, that's all I've ever known, kind of. Mm-hmm. And I think it's helped.
Yeah, so skiing came before climbing. Tell me about that. Like, where did that come from?
So, as every Scandi out there, or the presumption is that we all go skiing, and that's what we did. So I started skiing when I was like 3, and then I wanted to be a rebel and started snowboarding until I realized that I really have to ski to access climbing routes in the Alps and stuff. It's better to be on skis. So I started skiing again like 25, 26. So I've always had, even though I didn't start climbing until I was 19, I've always had the mountains around me. Like, every year we'd go on a ski trip in northern Sweden, or just even growing up like in Ireland, where I would see this mirror wall that I was talking about earlier, and my dad would always point it out, like, oh, people climb on there. So then that I actually found my way to the mountains and climbing isn't too much of a surprise. But I thought I liked skiing, and then I started climbing, and I was like, oh, I see what it's like to actually really, really like something.
Oh, right on.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like you were over to ski, maybe be a ski bum or something, and then ended up in Chamonix.
Yeah, so I came out. I always knew I didn't want to go to college or university. And
wait, why not?
Yeah. Oh, why not?
Yeah, like what turned you off about that?
I don't know. I just always had this strong sense that just like, nah, I don't want to do that. Like, I think from traveling around so much, I was like, whoa, there's so much world out there. I couldn't imagine like locking myself into going to university when I turned 18. Turning 18 was like the best day of my life, because I was like, whoa, I can go out there and do whatever I want now. And the thought of then like choosing to be in one place, a university or something, for another 3 years just felt like I just really didn't want to do it. So as soon as I finished school, I decided to go and do a ski season. And I ended up in Chamonix completely by chance. Didn't know anything about it. Didn't know anything about the climbing here, or that it was like the adventure capital of Europe or anything like that. And I did a couple of like snowboard party seasons, worked in the Irish bar, and then just randomly went climbing one day.
That's awesome. They're like, you can have a job here.
Exactly. I just walked in and I was like,
they're like, you're hired.
I'm Irish. Can I work? They're like, sure. Of course. You've always got a home in an Irish bar, no matter where you go.
You're like, you have that shamrock upside down, by the way. Can you flip that
exactly.
thing around? Like, it's not
exactly.
quite what you guys were going for. Let me help you out.
Yeah. Yeah, and then the snow melted one year, and I like went cragging at the local crag, and I was like, wow, I got to do more of this. And then I just haven't really stopped since, I guess.
Yeah, right. I mean, like, just because you were in the scene and you knew some people who climbed and said, can I try that? Or people hit you up. What was the actual moment that you went and checked it out?
So the truth is that I was actually dating this random Argentinian boy, and he was going climbing with his friends, and I was like, oh, welcome. And it was, I just did some top roping that day. And then I was meant to move to Berlin that summer to like continue the bar party life with a friend. And I called her and I was like, look, I know this is like last minute, I'm totally bailing, but I have to stay in France and I just have to climb. And then, I guess I do have this really strong memory of working in one of the other pubs at this point, like this brewery. And these two guys came in with climbing ropes. And I was like, right, that's going to be my table to serve because I have to make friends with these guys because they've got ropes and that means that they climb. And then I did end up becoming really good friends with them. And they brought me like alpine climbing and stuff over the summer. And that, it just kind of started from there. And then I went sport climbing a bit in Spain over the autumn and back into Chamonix for the winter, and it just slowly like kept building. But I think I started like the wrong side up because I started alpine climbing almost, like being in the mountains and with ice tools or on glaciers. And then I was like, wait a minute, I need to learn how to trad climb to actually be able to access these really, really cool looking mountains. So then I realized, okay, I need to like go back to basics. So I went to North Wales for a while in the UK and like tried to learn how to rock climb and place gear so I could then go back and have even better skills for the mountains in France. And then, just kind of like tried to, I think it was a bit of a skyscraper. And I think eventually I tried to start making it more of a pyramid, like having a base of trad climbing to actually be able to protect myself in the mountains. And but I think it was good to start in France, let's say alpine climbing, because here in Chamonix also, it's not, people are doing such crazy things all the time. So none of that was either a big deal. It's like, oh, of course we should go and like miss the lift and we end up sleeping in the lift station toilets because we've had such a big adventure. Or like, it's not so weird to do a big alpine route in the middle of winter. And like also just to de-dramatize all of that stuff. I think it was good just to, I don't know, just to dive in and just have fun with it and not be so like afraid of it.
Doesn't feel like it's backwards for a skier. Someone who has those skills, whether they're just resort skiing or not, to travel in the mountains, to be looking at alpine climbing first. It sounds totally reasonable to me. But I want to go back to something you said with these guys that came in with ropes, because I've like, you always make fun of that person who's like at somewhere public and they're like have their climbing gear with them, but apparently it works.
It works
because it attracted this woman named after a goddess, and so showing up and leave your harness on, guys, next time you go out to eat in
exactly.
Chamonix.
Exactly. I did end up having a little bit of a thing with one of them, so maybe it's a good way to pick up girls. Who knows?
Worked that one time anyway.
Exactly.
That's pretty cool. So I talked to a ton of people on here for whom, it was this like epiphany moment of like, this is what I'm going to do. And but it sounds like that was you, like, this is the story of that. Like, I am suddenly going to change my life to do this. I mean, what was your self-reflection on that in terms of at the time or since then, this kind of fire that it lit? Like, where do you think the ember was that was already burning that made it, you hooked into it so hard?
Yeah, I think actually I've always had that fire has always been there. And when I was a teenager, I was a bit on the wild side and did a lot of things I shouldn't have done and got in a lot of trouble. And I always had a lot of energy that had to come out. And I think, when I was younger or a teenager, it just came out in the completely wrong way. And then I found climbing and I was like, wow, now this energy can just be channeled in the right way. So I think that's just kind of what felt right. Like suddenly all of this like hyper focus or all this extra energy or all this like love for like something exciting and all these new things, it just actually found somewhere to go, which was a good place to go, and didn't end up in like a party or whatever mischief you can get up to as a teenager. It just felt like finally I had somewhere to like put all of me, all the me that was too much sometimes, like in school in Ireland or in school in Sweden or something. I was like, wow, okay, I can like put this somewhere and it's not actually going to disturb anyone. Kind of.
Could people around you, let's say your parents or siblings or close friends from before, could they see this happening? Could they? Did they have an understanding of like, wow, she's found this thing, and maybe this will be good for her as far as like, you know, all the things we've dealt with her growing up?
Yeah, I think no one was surprised when I suddenly just ventured off into the world and found something like climbing. No, definitely not. And especially my dad has been a huge part of my life, obviously, but also like my climbing career, because at some point I think I did start getting a little bit self-conscious because most of my friends and my brothers and cousins and everyone are going to university and doing all these things, and I was like, oh damn it, maybe I actually should do that too. And I remember for Christmas one time he gave me the Chamonix guidebook and a head torch, and I was like, wow, okay, he's like, that's his way of saying you just go do your thing, like you're just different and just roll with it and it's going to work out for you. So yeah, I think it was always the right thing to do, and it has worked out, so that's good. That's
amazing. I hope you kept that.
I'll never forget
head torch.
Yeah, well, I remember it was like a green Petzl head torch, but I still have the guidebook.
Oh, perfect. Yeah.
No, it's like it's one of my fondest memories.
That's
it's like a
cool.
silent way of like you go do you.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, because it can go either way. You know, parents can continue the pressure for you to go settle down or do something, you know, more appropriate with your life or whatever. So that's pretty special. And you need that. You definitely need that.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure. And like any like climbing adventures I ever go on, or, you know, I'll call my dad and be like, hey, I stuck the crux move of this route, or like, hey dad, I'm gonna go to the mountains for 3 or 4 days or something. Like, yeah, I'm so lucky to have that support.
What does he know about climbing? Just through armchair with you or what?
Yeah, pretty much.
So you're like, I stuck the crux. He's like, that sounds nice. Good job, honey.
Exactly. He's like, wait, let me just quickly Google what crux meant again. Well, you're stuck on something? Wait a minute.
Yeah, I don't get it. Yeah, that's cool. So as you're, you know, evolving, progressing, you know, you're just like, as this early climber, you're probably just like shooting your energy in all the directions, taking all the opportunities. What about like thinking through your evolution? You said you've been there for 10 years. Is that what you said? In Chamonix?
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, what stands out as like, you know, some sort of big moments in the mountains, kind of in the early days, climbing wise, where you were either quite proud of what you had done at that point, or, you know, or something that where you learned a lot. Maybe it was from bailing or from failing, but yeah, do you have anything that you reflect on as like, wow, that was a moment when things started to change for me?
Like in the mountains in Chamonix, I think I just did what any fresh psyched young climber would do, is just try and do everything at once. Something that comes to mind a bit stronger is being in Sweden. So I spent some time living in Sweden during COVID, and that's when I got super into rock climbing, super into trail climbing. And something that changed my mindset or changed like my climbing career or my confidence or any of these things was when I eventually sent something that I thought was like a really hard route that only professionals or like the pros can do, like on paper. And I think the moment that I actually did it was like a moment of like, wow, wait, I can do it. Anyone can do it. Just to, again, like demystify that we think that we can't do anything, you know? And it was like nothing is impossible kind of moment. And then I think, okay, well, if there's any other goals I have in life, those might not be as impossible as I think either, you know? So that was like a big moment of feeling confident to try all these other projects or wild dreams or anything.
What was the details on that? Was that that amazing freaking tip splitter thing?
Yeah. So that was Electric Avenue on the west coast of Sweden in Bohuslän. It's like 8A or 8A plus, quite run out trad route, like incredible. And I climbed my first 8A on bolts that summer when I was there. And then I saw this crack and it just spoke to me and I was like, I have to do that. And then I was like, no, Freya, that's ridiculous. Like the legends like Babsy or someone could do that. That's crazy. Or Hazel Findlay or someone, like, how dare you think that? And then I was there with a friend who was trying it. Yet again, like so many people in Bosen are climbing these kind of things. So I was there with a friend and I just top roped it for fun. And she said, like, Freya, you could totally do that route. And then I was like, yeah. Thought that was absolutely ridiculous. But then over time I kept trying it and I was like, wait a minute, maybe I actually could. And then actually doing it was like, wow, like all these glass ceilings, they don't actually mean anything. You just have to, if there's a will, there's a way.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I
remembered who you're named after.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, wait a minute, I see where it came from.
Yeah, that's. I mean, I watched that little film about her. It was an excerpt, I think, from a larger film. But I mean, the first thing I was like, holy shit! Like that is an amazing looking climb, you know?
Yeah.
Like it's you know, so I can see anyone with an eye for trad climbing would walk by it and be like, yeah, I want to climb that. But it also is extremely intimidating. I mean, it's a very thin crack splitting this large buttress and. You know, obviously tips, even if you have small hands. And so, yeah, that's pretty impressive. I mean, was that barrier entirely in your mind or, you know, that small community thing? Sometimes it can be sort of implied that you need to work through the things and, you know, in some ways, sometimes those places like, oh yeah, that is like for those people and you need to do these routes before you get there. Like, did you make a leap in terms of like the etiquette in any way, or was that not really happening?
I think it was a bit of a wild one to just decide to do with not that much trad climbing experience or like being that strong at that grade at the time whatsoever. And I do remember my boyfriend at the time was like, are you sure? But that just lit a fire of like, how dare you tell me I can't do it, you know? So that but otherwise I think it mainly came from, I don't know, when I first started climbing I watched all these videos of Sasha and Emily and, you know, they're on El Cap and they've been climbing forever and they just seem to be more qualified to do these things, you know. And maybe it's the limits I'm putting on myself, but I think It is quite easy to idolize a lot and you look up to people. But for me, at least, I thought I couldn't do those things because I wasn't those people. But yeah, so I probably just put the limit on myself more so than other people putting any limit on. But I think as a girl or a guy, of course, but like I think it takes a lot to go against the grain or to break a barrier. And if that barrier is like maybe not having an entirely chronological order of what climbs to do, you know, I think it takes a little bit of energy or some sort of boldness or confidence or something to go through, to bypass all that, if that makes sense. Or maybe that's something I've made up myself. I'm not sure, but it felt like a big deal to me, at least.
I mean, it's a combination of all those things. Like, I mean, for sure, society puts these hierarchies on everything and on us, and you know, so I don't. Yeah, I mean, it's a mix of everything, I'm sure. But you know, tell me a little bit about the fear factor. You know, we'll get to this. You know, you did have this accident. I think that changed that a lot for you. But what were you like in terms of that? Because, you know, the route is run out, it's on small gear and, you know, maybe not an X type, you know, death fall type route, but plenty to think about as it were when you're up there. Did this kind of like go for it, wild child attitude get you past stuff like that? What was your sort of dealing with fear sort of strategies?
When it actually comes down to the crunch in that way, like I might have from the outside a bit of a wild attitude or a bit all over the shop or whatever. But when it comes to like what I feel like can and cannot do in the mountains or on rock, it's like it comes from a feeling of like I feel like I just know my limits so well, and I feel what I can do, I just know to the bottom of my being that I can do it or I can't do it. So I would never have been bold enough to get on a route like that, not knowing that some little part of me knows that I could do it. It's almost like with any any sport or anything. I think if you have a vision or a want to do something like that, it's because you know that you can do it. And I think it's so important to listen to that. No matter how wild the dream is, if it's like a feeling inside, then I think you know you can do it. And that's what I felt with this route. It's like, I know I can climb through all those scary bits, or I know I can stick that move or place that gear without getting like too stressed or anything. So I don't think I have so much of a wild child attitude when it actually then comes down to it, which I think is a good thing. Yeah, I think most people probably relate to that in climbing.
Yeah, I mean, you found your balance and your ways and to get a lot of very cool things done. So, I mean, obviously you've worked on it to some success. One of the other things that stands out as you as a climber, the trad climbing is really interesting to me. And again, it's not unheard of, but it's not as common as climbing really hard sport climbs. But you're also this or at least you're trying to be this all around person in the mountains, climbing big routes, climbing mixed routes, ice climbing. And then, like I said, both, I'm sure you clip bolts. You don't hear about it as much as, as your,
it's just not that impressive when I clip on bolts. Yeah.
Right. So, we'll just not talk about that. We'll worry about that later. But yeah, tell me about that, like this attraction, for better or worse, to all these mediums.
I think I just find all sorts of like verticality fascinating, be it mixed climbing or ice climbing, or being in the mountains. Like whatever way it has to happen. So, if I want to climb ice, I'm going to climb ice. Or if I want to climb a big mountain in the winter, that's going to be mixed climbing. So I think I've just always been attracted to like all sorts of vertical climbing. And all the skills feel so transferable as well. Like being a rock climber, I felt it was quite relatively easy to transition to mixed climbing and so on. So yeah, I think and then trying to be the best at all of them is quite tiring. And now since my accident, I've changed my ways a little bit, but at some point I think I tried to do a little bit too much of everything at once, and now I'm trying to like structure it a bit more. But it's all just been so fun. So I've just enjoyed trying lots of different disciplines, and I think maybe I would get bored if I was just too focused on one thing.
Well, let me ask you a hard question, and maybe it won't work, but can you talk a little bit about, maybe drill down a little bit more on, let's say, what you get from sort of each experience? And I'll be more specific of like, a big route with mixed terrain. What do you think like fires in you versus, like a single pitch projecting, attempted over and over again kind of climbing? Because those two things in my mind feel very far apart in a way, and a lot of people do both. But what do you think like the big route mixed climbing really fires in you?
That definitely fires like huge sense of adventure. That's like the smash and grab, the instant gratification. You're on this crazy mountain, like defying what humans should be doing, and it's kind of not always super safe. And that's like the instant adrenaline. And then for like the single pitch, kind of geeky, figuring something out, I think that's maybe, I don't know, the geekiness or like my hyper focus on things, or like just being able to like focus in on something. You're so obsessed that everything else goes quiet. So I think they fill two very different important parts of my life, even though they're very different and they technically fall in under climbing, but just fill, two very, very different needs. I think at some point, or definitely when I was younger, before my accident, I thought that to be something or someone, I had to do all these mountain things, and I had to be the raddest mixed climber and ice climber and all that kind of stuff. So a lot of the early mixed climbing or ice climbing I did was me just like a headless chicken trying to like find my place in the world and testing everything out before realizing that, wait a minute, maybe it's actually a little bit too scary for you. Or you know what I mean? I think I just finding myself, I had to find myself in the mountains. And
well, we've been teasing it. Let's talk about this accident. It does seem to be, at least in the recent years, sort of a pivot point. You sent me an email talking about different things we could talk about. And, it says, it forced a reset and weirdly change things for the better. So that's an interesting thing to talk about. It seems like it did change your risk assessment, whether you liked it or not. Because I actually found this thing in I look in Instagram and look for sort of damning posts to talk about. But right around the time that you were like getting back on your feet, you said, quote, "People have asked if this would change my perception of risk or existence in the mountains, and the answer is no." So right afterwards, you were like, "I'm fine."
Yeah, bold statement. Wow, I better go back.
And then later Instagrams maybe proved that not to be the case. So let's just get into this. I mean, we're laughing about it, which is amazing because it could have been extraordinarily tragic. You could have lost your life or mobility or anything else. But first of all, like, what happened?
So I was on the north face of Le Droit, which is a north face here in Chamonix in the Alps. It's like 1,000-meter ice and mixed terrain. And I was meant to be on it for 4 days with my very good friend Ali, my housemate at the time. And on the second day, the conditions weren't so good. It's not climbed that often, just typical like alpine terrain. You never really know what you're getting. And my axis ripped and I fell like 10 meters onto a ledge and broke my back. It wasn't too dramatic. I passed out for a bit and managed to get back up to my friend Ali, who was belaying, and the helicopter came and stuff like that. So it wasn't, that experience isn't that traumatizing. And everything, the weather was really nice. I'll never forget, like, it was like 11 o'clock in the morning and the sky was like candy, and it was like the temps were just perfect. Like, everything feels like the whole accident and the whole thing feels like quite okay. Right. And then unfortunately I had a broken back, which that's unfortunate. So that's what happened. And then I was in a back brace for 3 months because I'd like squished or compressed a vertebrae, which was a lucky escape, I guess, from a fall like that, especially on a big wild mountain. Luckily the rescue services in France are so good. It would have been much worse, I think, if it was anywhere else.
And then let's just talk about like that aftermath. Again, to quote yourself, it weirdly changed things for the better and was a reset. But it seemed like that took a little time and surprised you a little bit in terms of like your mindset afterwards. Even though you boldly stated that nothing was going to change and you were just going to get right back at it. So talk a little bit about that. I
better go back and delete that post.
Delete that one. That's what my new thing is just like mining years of Instagrams to see what kind of things bold statements you made in the past.
Yeah. I think when the accident happened, I was in denial. And I think maybe my like strong feeling about this will never change my life was probably feeding off that denial that like I'd actually had an accident in the mountains. Like before that happened, like anyone, you can kind of think you're invincible or nothing that bad has happened. And I always kind of got away with things. And then I had an accident and it was like, wow, things can actually kind of go wrong. But I just refused to accept it for a while. For a very long time, actually.
Yeah, when I read about the incident too, it sounded like you actually were like, no, we have to keep climbing for a few minutes. Yeah, like, and it reminded me, when like a cat wrecks itself, like it doesn't land on its feet. Like they usually like sit there and they just stare at you and they're like, I'm fine. Like my cat fell off the top of our stairs one time and he just sat up and he just sat there for like 20 minutes, completely still. Like I'm fine. I'm totally fine. I think that was like beat it.
I was the cat. No, I actually have this really funny memory of. So this is my housemate. We're like really good friends, and when I fell off, he starts taking gear off my harness, and my little feminist self was like, "Hang on, just because I fell off this pitch doesn't mean I can't finish it." It was like, how dare he just assume that I can't top this out? And then he was like, "No, Freya, we're going down. We're calling a helicopter." And then we did have like a half an hour argument about calling a helicopter. So I think there was just this strong sense of like, no way, this hasn't happened. Life's great. I'm climbing. I'm gonna take over the world. La 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 la. So I was in such disbelief, which I think I think anyone might be, or you just really don't want your life to be disrupted. And then when the rescue people are on the phone and they're all speaking French, and suddenly someone's sticking a needle in you, giving you ketamine, and you're like, guys, I'm fine, everything's fine, you got the wrong girl, I just fell. It's like I just couldn't imagine anything ever happening. It just took a long time to kind of realize, like, oh, this did happen. Even when they told me in the hospital you broke your back, I was like, you guys have the wrong girl, like, go back and check those scans, this is not true.
Jesus.
They're
like, more ketamine. She needs more ketamine.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, did someone check her head? Is she okay?
Yeah, did she hit her head too? Right, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and then I think I was probably trying to hang on. Maybe I felt like something had changed. I was probably so scared from that happening and like falling off a big mountain and breaking something and having an accident, that to compensate for that, I probably said, like, no, this will never change my risk, because it was probably too much to meet with that at the time, that something might actually have changed here. And yeah, it's only now, like in the last, so that was January 24. It's only in the last 6 to 8 months that it's like kind of creeping in a little bit more. And I don't think before the accident, I didn't have to think too much about, like, I kind of just tried stuff and figured it out. But now I'm definitely more risk adverse and like, hang on, is this worth it? Like, do I actually want this? And feeling a lot more afraid when I'm out climbing, which is something to deal with. Something that I had the luxury to not deal with too much before. So maybe it's just everything's catching up with me in a way. And yeah, I think it is for the better, because it also got rid of this feeling that I had to do it all. And now, like, what I absolutely love the most in the world is like trad climbing or rock climbing or like big walling, and that's always been my one true love. But I felt like I could never always just be a rock climber, because I had to be like a mixed climber and an alpinist and badass. And now I'm like, hang on a minute, it's just, I almost blew it once when I broke my back, and that might have meant I could never go rock climbing again. Like, I'm not going to blow it again. I don't know. It's made me feel so just calm and content to have landed in that, and it's almost like a relief. Like, now I can just do what I want to do, and I don't have to try and be everything else. But it's taken a long time.
When you said it started to creep in, I mean, what did that literally look like? Like you were scared, backing off of things that you would have never thought about. What did it actually like physically look like in your world when you were like, wait, what is this new voice in my head that wasn't there before?
Yeah, it's just starting to see, like, in little ways, actually, because as soon as I just started the mountain guiding training when this accident happened. Right. So I had to take like 6 months off the course before I could start. And I remember on our first course, 6 months later, we had to climb like a 6A or something. And I just remember putting like 3 or 4 cams in to back up this like teeny tiny move. And I was like, wait a minute, that's a bit weird. And then I was like, oh, but there's a ledge. And I was like, hang on, okay, I'm definitely going to fall onto the ledge. Okay, I'll put another cam in. And I was like, wait, like, it just slowly, I just started doubting myself a lot more when there was any tiny little bit of like risk or being able, or like hurting myself. And then I think it's just slowly kind of built up. Maybe I don't think I dealt with it very well, because I thought that I would just jump back on and I'd be totally fine. And then, so I didn't even consider that I might actually be kind of affected mentally by this. So there was a delay because I refused to accept it. And then I was like, I'm a little bit extra afraid there. I was like, no, I'm not afraid. Or I remember I climbed this route for this Brit Rock film like 6 months after the accident. And I hadn't been on it in a year before the accident. And it's like this 13A 7-pitch granite thing, like such an amazing route. And that was the first thing I climbed outdoors since the accident, and I kind of just thought that I could just get on it and it would be fine. And I remember on the last pitch that I didn't actually send, I fell off, or I jumped off because I was too tired to make the move. And I just remember being terrified of jumping off, and I was like, whoa, this is the first like whip I'm taking in 6 months since I broke my back. I was like, Freya, just like cut yourself some slack. Yeah, so I think that's why it took a long time for it to kind of catch up, because I just didn't really want to acknowledge it at all.
Is that footage in the film when you're like, when you jump off? Because I think I saw it.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, there's been like little clips, and I'm like, take this massive scream, and my best friend's belaying, and I'm like, Ariane, are you sure you have me? And like, I'm panicking. Yeah. You know, it's like,
that's interesting. Yeah, that's right. It's so everybody could see it. But you know, were other people, were your partners like well, let me say this. Sometimes these changes happen, and actually once you acknowledge it, your partners and some people around you might have gone like, oh yeah, no, we've noticed, and we were wondering when you were gonna like catch up with it as well. Had people noticed it at all, like that your style had changed a little bit?
Yeah, actually, from someone that didn't know me so well, one of the boys on my guiding course, who I'm really close to, but that was our first course, so we didn't know each other. And I kind of told him, like, I had this accident. And then I remember him being like, hey, Freya, like, because he must have been belaying me that day. I put like 5 cams in for this like non-crux. And he was like, Freya, are you sure you're okay? And I was like, you don't even know me. Of course I'm okay. You know? And then, but I think slowly, like, enough comments in that way kind of made me think, And then I do actually remember, so last autumn, I was on the south face of Mont Blanc trying to climb like a big ice route with my friend. We didn't actually end up doing it, but again, I thought I had to go and do some mixed and ice climbing. This was before, like, I realized I don't have to do that and all that kind of stuff. But I remember texting my friends on WhatsApp. I have this girl group on WhatsApp, and I was like, guys, like, I'm really scared. I don't want to be here. Like, what is going on? I just feel so afraid. I don't want to climb a big ice route at 4,000 meters. And they're like, of course you don't, and that's fine. And I just felt it took so much to admit that I didn't want to be there. And they're like, well, we don't blame you, you know? So I was like, oh, I can actually talk about this and it's okay. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, that's a good friend group.
Yeah.
Well, so let's finish this part of this convo by asking, like, you know, what have you adjusted in terms of like your mind? You know, you're right now, like, that story is about you giving yourself permission to not do this thing, you know, and it took these people to allow yourself to do that. But finally you have to give yourself permission to be like, yeah, I'm not into this, I'm going down. And, you know, I've remarked on that a lot about even partners sitting there thinking these thoughts, but not wanting to admit them to each other, you know, to go down or whatever. Who's going to be the first person to like pull the ripcord kind of a thing. What have you adjusted in your climbing? Because I mean, you're still climbing, and you're still climbing really, you know, big and sort of bold things, bold in the sense of large adventures on El Cap. And we talked about dropping into the black. Like, it's that, none of that stuff is for the totally faint of heart. So, yeah, what have you adjusted with how you approach these things?
One of the major adjustments is just like admitting, like what I mentioned earlier, like accepting and admitting that I kind of just want to go rock climbing. And I don't have to do all these like alpine mixy things for now. I just want to go rock climbing. And that's what I feel most confident in. No accident, I think, could take that away from me. So even just that, like cutting down the gnarl that I expose myself to, you know, be like, yeah, like what I mentioned earlier, I don't have to do all that. And then in actual in rock climbing itself, just differentiating between what's fear and danger. And like I put up a post when I was in Yosemite. I just got off a cap and I was trying to climb this like super slippery 12B or something. And I mean, Yosemite climbing for me, it was just so difficult. So, you know, the grade on paper felt completely different in real life. And it was just so slippery. And I was like terrified of falling off. I was like mentally exhausted from being on a cap and all that kind of stuff. And instead of just ignoring it all and pushing it away and telling myself to just get on with it, I was like, actually, I'm going to pre-place the gear. The first time I've ever done that. I was like, I'm going to pre-place the gear. I'm going to like work out these moves. I'm just going to do this pitch and it's okay. You know, and just like micromanage the little bits of fear and just accepting it instead of thinking that, oh no, but you have to be able, you have to, like, why can't you do this route? Like, you should be able to do this route. Being like, no, I couldn't do it and I was really scared and I'm going to make it less scary and build up my confidence. Yeah, just being a bit more kind and I don't know, just chilling out a bit more, I think, and less hard on myself in that way.
Yeah, I mean, there's like the accident, but there's also like maturity, and you're not old, but you're not, 22 or whatever. And I think it feels to me like there's a combination of that, especially something like that where you have this, ethical standard that was, you had a lot of pride in, following, and it was like handed to you by these communities that we talked about earlier, right? These hardcore communities, and who are you betraying when you pre-place that gear? Like, it's like, so what? Like that. That's the weird thing. Yeah, and then you're like, well, no, it's like those people that fit there, and that was part of this, and like, no one cares. Like, no one really cares that much that you pre-place that gear. But you have to like get past that, and it's it's definitely a young person's thing to be so strident about those kind of ethics. Not that you should give them up, and you should still use them as a guide, but it's just an interesting thing, as far as maturity is concerned.
Yeah. No, that's a really good way of putting it. And for sure, it's a combination of the accident and then being a few years older than a few years, and just like, hang on, like, you're good enough. It's going to be fine. And just everyone's just trying hard, and now, before, I could look at people and be like, oh, but they pre-placed, or they weren't honest about every single meter. And I'm like, hell yeah, they tried hard. Let's celebrate that they just got on it and tried hard. It's like, I think it's just, becoming way more secure in myself as well. You just kind of let go of these things and just celebrate, like, I don't know, it's all that, everything in climbing is so gnarly. I think we should just celebrate that anyone even wants to do it sometimes.
Yeah, and the accident, it obviously you would rather not have had it happen, but it's almost like, you play in this game with alpine climbing, and you're hyper aware of it in Chamonix, that it ends tragically, on the reg, in the big mountains, but also right there in your backyard. So it's like you kind of got this little, in some ways, it was like a smack that didn't cost you that much, to learn a lot of things, and again, the circumstances could have been totally different. I don't know if you agree with that. No,
for sure. And I think, it was a really good heads up, and I'm just glad that, I mean, all in all, it was a really positive experience, and I'm glad that it happened, and then the aftermath.
Couple things else, the guiding choice, and you're also a professional climber of sorts, which we should talk about as well, because you sent me some funny stuff about that. But what about the choice to be a guide? I can imagine it's all around you. You're in the capital of the world, really, for alpine guiding. Where does that fit in your sort of plan, and what drew you to it? And is the alpine part of that gonna be something that you're cooled off on at all?
Deciding to become a mountain guide, like I've had a bit of a battle with it, I guess, because I was so against it at the start, because I just wanted to non-stop climb forever. And then along with my back, I think I realized that, okay, maybe I can't climb full-time forever. I should maybe not go to university, but maybe do something for the future, because clearly everything doesn't always go your way. So I decided to become a mountain guide, and being surrounded by a lot of guiding and stuff around here just felt like the right thing to do. And I guess just having a lot of the skills that are necessary from like doing a little bit of everything, and to be a mountain guide, you need to have a little bit of everything. And also I thought it would actually just make me a much better alpinist, learning, like going back, reeling it all in, starting from the start, like how do you look at snow? How do you look at a mountain? How do you actually approach this, like with a plan, just to build those steps back up again and be a bit more solid for the mountains and stuff. And in relation to the accident, I do feel a lot more confident through being a mountain guide or going through the training when I'm in the mountains. So it's helped this like fear of the mountains through the accident by actually going through it and be like, okay, I understand a little bit more now. So that's been really positive for sure.
Well, it sounds like it could make you a more empathetic guide as well.
Yeah.
When other people are scared or other people are, trying to overcome some barrier that they have in their head. I think there's plenty of guides who have no concept of what their clients are feeling.
Yeah, for sure.
And maybe you will,
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I had to put a lot of effort into skiing as well, because I've always kind of skied or snowboarded, but I've never been that interested in it. So you have to have a certain level to be a mountain guide. So I had to put so much effort into it. And that was such a humbling experience as well. Like, first of all, being a complete beginner at something. And then, like, before I couldn't really fathom I was like, how can't they climb it? Or how can they not be into climbing? And now, after being a beginner at skiing, I'm like, wow, I'm so empathetic to, like, when things feel scary or really difficult or any of these things. So it's definitely maybe a much more well-rounded, thoughtful person, I think, having to be a completely beginner at something again.
You wrote something here too, this the hilarious moments when no one expects me to be the guide. What were you getting to with that?
So, well, I get such a kick out of it now, but I think being a female mountain guide in the Alps, especially, where it's all male dominated, or like most of the mountain things are. Obviously, rock climbing is very different because the girls are nearly climbing harder than the boys these days. But as a woman mountain guide in the Alps, I have so many funny run-ins where just no one expects a girl with, like, my favorite jacket to guide in is like this tone of pink. And then my blonde hair is sticking out of my helmet. And I just think it's just so funny to play with it sometimes because no one ever expects me to be the mountain guide. And yes, some funny stories like buying lift tickets, for example, in Switzerland, where I went up to the ticket desk and I was like, hey, can I buy 3 tickets, please? 1 for the guide and 2 for the clients. And the person behind the desk is like, where is he? And I was like, where's who? And he's like, where's the guide? And I was like, I'm the guide. And it's just I'd get such a kick out of it. Or like the other day I went in to get a present for my boyfriend for Christmas, and I asked the place did they do discounts for guides, and his reply was like, oh, is it your boyfriend? And I was like, no, I'm the guide. So it's in a way it's kind of like not to take it personally and just play with it and just kind of go against the grain. That's my rebellious self, I think, like wanting to break yet another kind of glass ceiling barrier thing. It comes with its pros and cons, I guess, like with anything. I think, it just gives you a tougher skin, I think, being a little bit different. Or
those shops must think you were just some Irish girl on holiday, though, right?
I know, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, they're like, she just looks confused. She's looking for a discount. Like, what's going on?
Doesn't sound like us.
Yeah.
You should just roll with a French accent. Maybe they'd go for it. How's your French, by the way?
Let's not talk about that.
Okay. All right. So one last kind of line of questioning is that, like I just said, you're balancing this life that you have through climbing. It's all climbing related. You're guiding, but you're also a professional climber in terms of sponsorship. That means a lot of different things when you say it out loud. There's, professional climber that just lives well and makes a ton of money. And then there's the person who's juggling different types of sponsorships each year and trying to make ends meet. And everybody's somewhere in the middle, So what's that been like? And you talked earlier about this, like, imposter syndrome, this idea that you're not supposed to climb this hard climb that everybody, better than you is trying. But I kind of feel a little bit of that in your media too, of like feeling like, who am I to be out here, like, with these brands behind me? Is that accurate?
For sure. And I think maybe that's why I've also chosen to become a mountain guide, because it feels like there's a little safe space if I feel way too much imposter syndrome from getting supported by brands. So I've worked with like Mountain Equipment and a couple of brands for a few years, which has allowed me to like go climbing and do all sorts of things, which has been awesome. And I'm so grateful. But part of me is also like, what the hell, why me? You know what I mean?
Because you asked.
Say again.
Because you asked.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like that's really like a lot of people. They're like, well, how did that person get sponsored? I mean, like, because they asked to be sponsored, and the people said yes, and like you didn't ask, and that's why you're not sponsored. They're not going to come find you. You know, they're not going to come to your door with a big box of gear.
I don't imagine.
But anyway, sorry to interrupt.
But I do remember asking the person who manages some of the brands that I'm with, and I was like, but why me? And he was like, because you're asking. You know, because you're not just taking it for granted, or you're not like thinking that you're some superhero legend and all that kind of stuff. And I think, anything that I've gotten from being supported by brands is like when I started climbing and I saw people that they hadn't climbed their whole life and they were just trying hard and didn't have this like super mega impressive resume of whatever. It just felt more relatable when someone's just kind of a real human trying hard and doing things. And I think that's my space in the sponsored world. It's like, I'm never going to be Emily Harrington or anyone like that, but I think I'm just like a psyched girl who goes climbing and tries as hard as she can. And I've kind of landed in that now. You know, I don't have to be the best, or I don't have to climb 9A or whatever I thought was the only thing worthy to be sponsored for. But that's also taken a little while just to like own it and not be shy or embarrassed about it. Or like when I made this film this last summer about climbing that route that I tried the first time after I broke my back, I was like, but why do they want, like, this is ridiculous, why do they want to make a film about me? Like, this is almost embarrassing, and I didn't want anyone to watch it or anything like that. And then it's like, hang on, like, we need those people too. And just I don't know, just to own that space a little bit. You're laughing so much.
I just laugh because it's like, I don't want anyone to watch it. Like, I just imagined you like in front of the screen at like the Kendall Film Festival or whatever. Like, no,
exactly.
Look at me.
I've seen it once, and when I I don't like, I can't be in the room when anyone else watches it. I don't want anyone to talk about it ever because I'm just like, oh God, don't. But it's just, we all have our little shyness or insecurities, I guess.
Right. So what's a weakness that you're working on in your climbing?
Ooh. Well, definitely the mental thing. Wow. Wait a minute. Well, I think one, like a major thing is just don't do it if you don't want to do it. You know, like don't turn up to the crag and try a route if you don't want to try the route, or don't overdo it either. You know, like trying to just listen to myself and what I actually want to do. And that is a weakness. Like, do I want to do this for me, or do I want to do it because someone thinks it's cool, or does it sound better online if I did it? And like, what do I actually want to do? And just not to get drawn into that. So I think that is a weakness, like not knowing what's the right thing for me and what's the right thing for what I think other people are going to care about, along with like the mental side of things. And then obviously there's like the physical part. Like I'm terrible at like overhangs, for example. So I'm forcing myself to go to the gym and climb some overhangs. So I guess that question could be a lot of answers.
Right. But you know, it's interesting to talk about the that line of like, don't do something you don't want to do. But you know, there's also pushing limits, and there's also, you know, a quote from you here: to reach extremes, you have to go to extremes. And sometimes, which I think you think is both bad and good in your life, but you know, there is that, like, you do have to get off the couch. You do have to like put yourself into uncomfortable situations to sort of get what we want to get out of climbing. So I do find that, I mean, I know what you're talking about, this feeling of like, well, I'm supposed to climb this, or that's the next step, but I don't really like that. Or, but at the same time, like, you can't, you know, also just only do these things that, you know, feel like running through a field of daisies if you want to sort of get better. So how do you sort of balance that of like stepping out of your comfort zone, but just not too far, or maybe you're deciphering what the actual motivations are? How do you kind of think about that?
Yes, I think like in terms of pushing myself in comfort zone, like if I'm like, I'll always be really motivated to have a really big challenge, but it's just whether or not the challenge is what I want to do, or the challenge is what someone else expects me to do, which no one probably expects anything anyway, but it's just whatever we build up in our head. But for example, like I have a project down the valley, which is like this bolted sport route. And for me, it's a huge challenge because it's like lots of hard pitches stacked on top of each other. And that's what I really want to do. And I can be motivated every day of the week to drag my ass out there, and even if it's snowing outside. So I'm still pushing myself to get out there and do things. I'm just choosing it not to be like on a mountain, or like, there's really good high pressure in the Alps at the moment. And people are mixed climbing and alpine climbing. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go down and try that crux move again. So I think I'm still really motivated to do stuff. It's just what I actually want to do and not what everyone else is kind of doing, if that makes sense. Like, I'm so happy going down to my project. The other day I was there with a friend until like 8 p.m. We had head torches. It was kind of snowing. It was so cold. But I was just loving it on this like random bolted sport route that I'm just completely obsessed with in comparison to like having a big epic on a mountain route.
You've kind of casually, mentioned like throwing elbows around as far as, you call yourself, a feminist when your partner was taking your gear away. You obviously have this like kind of bold outlook of being in spaces that maybe, you're sort of invading them as a woman in a way, whether it's guiding or anything else. But also you sound real casual about it and kind of laugh it off at times. And you're able to laugh off these little slights that you get from the shopkeepers in Chamonix or wherever. Also I see you, climbing with other women in that media, you talk about, it's like a women team. It's cool. So some people can really wear that as a badge. Some people can just do it by example. Where does that fit into your world now as, again, as you've gotten older and been in the game for a while? This idea of being a woman in climbing, but also sort of promoting that or being an example.
I'm sure any girl will relate to this, and I'm sure the world has heard it 1,000 times, but I just think it's so powerful doing things with a girl in the mountains. And I think when I started climbing, there was kind of like, don't be too feminine, or I refused to wear pink, or my hair was really long, and I was like, okay, you gotta be like the boys, or I can't cry or say I'm scared or anything like that. And over time, with confidence, like I'm just trying to embrace this female way of doing it even more. And then I climb with like some of my girlfriends, and it's such a powerful experience. Or climb with Faye, or being with women in the mountains. And yeah, I'm just trying to like embrace it a bit more and bring it into guiding and stuff like that, because I feel like, unfortunately, there is a big gap, and maybe more so in the alpine world than on the rock climbing world. But I also feel like I can do that for the world, because I feel confident in my place in the alpine world or the guiding world. So I don't mind being the one with the pink down jacket and still doing the job kind of thing. You know what I mean? Yeah, I just think it's such a powerful thing. And I wish that my climbing partners were all my best mates. Like sometimes I look at my friends or a lot of the guides that I meet in huts and stuff, and they're all best pals and whatever. I was like, wow, imagine being up here at work in a mountain hut with like my girlfriends. Like that would just be incredible. Since I started guiding, I think it's just shown more and more what a big difference there is. And I don't think I used to be such a feminist, or always, like, oh, the girls can be just like the boys. But through experiences in the guiding world and in the mountain world, I'm like, wow, there is a big difference. But I kind of want to like do my part to try and change it.
All right, folks, thanks for listening, and thanks to Freja for sitting down. That was a lot of fun. I like to bring you guys some athletes maybe you've not heard of here in North America quite as much, although we have a much more global climbing community these days than many years ago, thanks to social media, the internet, all those sorts of things. If you want to follow Freja on Instagram, she's at freja.shannon, easy enough. Google her. There's plenty of videos, a lot of fun stuff out there with Freja. All right, folks, it's been a weird climbing season here in Colorado and in the West. We haven't had much of a winter. The ice climbers are still out scraping around despite the lack thereof. Rock climbing season's been great. You know, if you can forget the existential dread of an apocalyptic drought going on around you. So I've been out there grabbing them crimps, praying for snow, and checking my knots.
And I think that's the hardest thing, that you might feel physically fine, but mentally it takes a lot more work.
No, I'm off. I'm off. Ah! Okay, are you ready?
Yep.
Ah!